Councillor Rae, you have the floor.
Thank you. I would like to ask a member of the committee to move recommendation 1 in the staff report be amended to read as follows. Authority be granted to the General Manager of Transportation Services to serve notice of study completion and to file the environmental study report for the Jarvis Streetscape Improvements Class Environmental Assessment Study in the public realm for 30 days in accordance with the requirements of the Municipal Class Environmental Assessment, subject to the amendment of the environmental study report to indicate that alternative design solution 1, which includes the provision of exclusive bike lanes on Jarvis Street, is the recommended alternative. And if you turn to the report, you will find that there are explanations in the report of how you would do the bicycle lanes. I'd like to thank the staff for including those in the presentation that you have before you today. First of all, I would like to thank the staff for the work that they've done over the years. And we started off working on this in 2000. And I think the staff have done an admirable job of putting together the opportunities that Jarvis Street presents the community and how to improve it, both from a cultural corridor, well, more than not just both, but from a cultural corridor, from a transit corridor, from a traffic corridor. They have looked at the improvements, and I want to congratulate planning, heritage, public works, transportation, all of you for the work that you've done over the years. I'd like to draw, and I'm sorry I'm having to do this, but when I put out my newsletter to the community, and every householder got a copy of this in 2004, there was a notice about taking out the middle lane. And ironically, in the next photograph is our wonderful Margot Boyd here with her child, and she's in the picture next to it. They were aware in 2004. In 2005, I put out a newsletter and invited people to the traffic feasibility study that we held at Rogers. And the chair of the Moore Park Residents Association attended that meeting. And unfortunately, she was here earlier today and decided not to speak. So I didn't get an opportunity to ask her why there's a problem in communicating with...
Mr. Rae, we never get your newsletters, and I'm in your part.
So quite clearly, the information got out there. Some people did not respond to it. Jarvis Street is an interesting street. It does serve the whole community of Toronto. However, there is a sizable neighborhood that has now developed over the years. It wasn't there in the 50s, it wasn't there in the 60s, and frankly, it wasn't even there in the 70s and early 80s. But over the 80s, 90s, and since this century, there have been, as I think the staff said, a 33% increase over the last 15, 20 years of the people who live in this corridor. It's not a traffic corridor anymore. It needs to be a good transportation corridor. And that's why I have moved that the bike lanes be added. I recognize that the cars are an essential part of how this city works. There are people who would like to take this down to 3 lanes. I believe the 4 lanes make sense. Most of the city streets in downtown Toronto are in fact 4 lanes. I don't think this is a grievous taking away of rights of car drivers. As we know from the staff, that middle lane often is not used effectively. If you talk to people one-on-one about it, they tell you quietly they're afraid of it. They don't like using it, they're uncomfortable with it, and they're also very uncomfortable because they can't trust the person coming up Jarvis as they're driving down that they're going to respect how that lane works. So there are issues about how that lane works. And there are very significant issues about how that lane works if there were a blackout. Because without notice on the sign that hangs over the street, you wouldn't know what to do. So cars are being protected, 4 lanes. We're going to add bike lanes so that there's more integration of transportation on that corridor. Pedestrians, there are some places on Jarvis Street that are wider than others on the sidewalk. Some of them are more generous. We're going to have to do the best we can to accommodate everybody's use. At the TTC, and Councillor Palacio will remember, and unfortunately Councillor Giambroni is not here, I went and asked for them to upgrade their use of Jarvis Street. Right now there are only 4 buses a day that use Jarvis Street for express during the rush hour. Given the increase of population on the street, given the need for people to use transit, and we think they should be using transit, we are moving in that direction. I've asked the TTC to consider the increase of the uses for the TTC. And finally, we'll be removing on-street parking. so there will be a more free flow of traffic in the neighborhood. So quite frankly, it's been a tough one. I think it was Anthony, and he's gone now, but Anthony Humphreys spoke very, very clearly about the dilemma that I have gone through, quite intuitively. The dilemma that I have gone through, because I would really love to have created a more cultural, a more pedestrian-friendly, but we have to do trade-offs. We have to recognize that all parts of transportation and transit and traffic and pedestrian and bicycle need to be satisfied in a major arterial road, and therefore I would hope that members of the committee would support my motion. I'm sorry I spoke so long.